one question to kind of ask as we look at this in terms of our overall, but again, 10,000 foot view looking down, what are we willing to budget for vehicle expenses per year? Could we look at that? I mean, I'm looking here at some of these numbers. If you have an idea what we can budget per year for vehicles, and that tells you, it pretty much tells you when you have to roll them over.
Yeah.
Because we're roughly 30 vehicles. I'm looking at replacement costs. It's about 1.8 million for the replacement cost for those vehicles. That means we're averaging somewhere around 60,000 a vehicle on the average.
Yeah, that includes plows, which really,
Well,
for the,
yeah, those out of whack. But then I looked here at what we were saying annual costs, and if I look at those annual costs for those 5 years, it's approximately 220,000 a year, which says that on the average year we could buy somewhere between 3 and 4 vehicles. We would have the money to replace if that is truly replacement dollars and not maintenance. So we have to kind of look at that as well. Some years that 200,000 would only buy a dump truck and maybe one other vehicle. In some years you could replace 3 or 4 vehicles. But you got 30 vehicles here. So
well, and we also need to recognize that
it's about as well. Finishing that thought. So if we're something around 60,000 vehicle, 220, that would say 4 and 30. We'd be on a 7-year average replacement cycle for the vehicles.
Yeah, on average.
On average, and then throw the police in there that are doing it on 3, and then that kind of pushes everything
Right. That's exactly right.
the other way.
Everything else
Right.
is a lower priority, and we admit that.
Yeah.
We need to recognize that there are different pots of money that fund these replacements. All of the vehicles assigned to general fund functions, those costs would be charged to the equipment replacement fund. But, for example, on plows, we would charge a portion, well, they're dump trucks. In the winter, they're plows, otherwise they're dump trucks. And so we would charge a portion to stormwater and sewer.
That's what I was gonna say, I couldn't look at our budget this year and tell you how much we have in there for vehicles.
Right.
Because it's split up. That's the issue. We need
In
to
a short period of time.
We need to kind of, we need to kind of suck that back and put it in, at least for an analysis, and put it in one pot and say, given that all these funds are feeding into this one vehicle replacement fund, how much is that? And that'll really tell us how much we can roll over and when we can.
Would it be difficult, and one question, the second question, would it be worth the effort to go back and know what our 5-year history is and what we've spent on vehicles?
Right, yeah, I think either way, you're gonna get a feel, and you need to average it over a number of years, to kind of see what we have been spending on the average for the budget.
But it's also a function of resources. In tighter times like now, we're going to a much more conservative replacement schedule.
Well, I think it's one interesting information because
It
you
helps
have
make a decision.
again, you have a pot of money that effectively has been pushed out into some different areas, but you pull it all back together and it replaces vehicles. I think we need to know how much that is on the average so that we can have some feel for what these numbers are real. See, my problem when I look at something like this is that unless I know how big the pot is of money, I don't know if these replacement guideline years are even possible.
Is that the right way to look at it? I'm just going to play the devil's advocate. Do we want to base our budgets, our future budgets, on a reasonable schedule? Or do we want to base the schedule on
I don't want
a
to
fixed resource pool that we have some ability to manipulate?
The reason I would like to do it is, okay, I see a number here, 270,500 on the proactive replacement plan. What have we spent in the past? Have we spent $250,000 in the past? Is this basically keeping our tax base the same? Or is this all of a sudden $200,000 tax increase.
And the answer to that is a year that includes a plow replacement is much different than a year that doesn't. In this year, for example, where we budgeted for 2 police vehicles and a public works pickup truck and a water meter truck, we were really at 75, about 85,000 for 4 vehicles.
So this would represent a $200,000 increase in expenditure.
Yeah, because it includes, this 2010, we were talking about 4 vehicles.
That was a tight year.
Yeah,
You see where I'm coming
Yeah.
from?
right.
It helps me to see, okay, we're gonna have to raise taxes to do this.
Mhm.
So it tells me at a glance. Or we've gotta cut back,
Or we use fund
or
balance,
we use carryover.
which we've actually got some.
So, but, the replacement cost, is that also takes into account either whatever the salvage value is, or if you sell it, right? Salvage.
It doesn't include that, does it?
It's not reflective
It's not
of,
reflected of the savings.
right,
So we need a net, we'd have to net that out too, because
Yeah.
that's part of the difference in dollars.
and I didn't do that because every year I would anticipate looking at, okay, what makes sense this year? If we rotate these vehicles out, does it make sense to move one to a different department?
True.
This
one you did.
Well, I like what you've done there, it shows
It shows some possibilities, doesn't set anything in stone.
The thing that I was trying to push as well, though, to take at least a round number look at it, though, is that I don't want to see ourselves pushing stuff in the future and then having, a catastrophic year where you got 2 plows replaced and 6 cars.
Well, it seems, and I
And
think
you can't afford it. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, that's why we do multi-year budgeting in the CIP. Okay, so the CIP that Tim's got in front of him there is not reflective of this, because this was done second.
Yeah.
But next year, when we redo the CIP, we would fold all of this into the CIP, and we would see when those critical years are.
Yeah, and that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, so
I do take that view.
That's the
I
whole
don't think we have
intent.
to. I don't think we necessarily have to right now, but as we
Right.
do the planning for the budgeting, which is coming up on us quick, we do have to take that view that over a period of time, this is the growth we expect. Yeah, this is where the budget would be, this is what would normally be the funds that we would see budgeted for. Of that portion, this is allocated roughly to this is roughly allocated to that. And it worked. You have to do the same thing for your home budget. I mean, we're not asking to do anything different than a person has to do when they budget for entertainment and transportation and house expenses and,
whether or not you have to go get a second mortgage.
yeah.
So when we plug all of this data into 5-year CIP, which is really 5 or 6 different CIPs, then we could make some adjustments if we need to. Say, okay, well, really, we can't afford to do a plan next year. So we make adjustments.
This is a great start. I mean, we got a snapshot in time, we know what we have, and we have some ideas. And I think we're just turning it into, a financial plan is the next step, which we have to do at some point in time.
One of the questions I have is, there's 8 vehicles with low criticality, and 5 of those light duty. One of the things that you gotta look at with fleet management is, is it the right size, is it the right makeup, that type of thing too. And, do we need this number of vehicles?